Hello, everyone. Welcome to our exciting lesson today. We're going to explore different types of maps. On this slide, you'll see the titled types of maps, along with a subtitle that mentions political maps and historical maps. This presentation is part of Unit 2, Lesson 1 in Grade 5 Social Studies. Over the next few slides, we'll learn about what makes these maps special and how they help us understand the world around us. I'm glad you're here, so let's get started. So, what exactly is a map? Well, a map is basically a representation of the Earth or a part of it, and its main purpose is to help us understand our world better. Maps are incredibly powerful tools because they show us information about different places, the people who live there, and the environment around us. You can find maps drawn on paper, displayed on screens, or even as globes. They help us locate specific places, understand how far apart they are, and learn about various features like mountains, rivers, and cities. When it comes to navigation, maps are essential. They guide us from one location to another and help us understand directions, whether we're walking, driving, or exploring new areas. Maps also provide a lot of different types of information, like identifying countries, cities, mountain ranges, or rivers, giving us a clearer picture of the world. Another important concept is scale. Maps use scale to represent large areas in a smaller, manageable size, so we can see the whole picture without it becoming overwhelming. And beyond navigation and information, maps are great educational tools. They teach us about geography, history, and how people interact with their environment. Overall, maps are fundamental for understanding the world around us and connecting various pieces of information in a meaningful way. So, what exactly are political maps? Well, they are maps that show the human-created boundaries and divisions across the world, continents, and regions. These maps are designed to highlight the borders between countries, states, provinces, and even cities. It's interesting to note that these boundaries aren't physical features like mountains or rivers. Instead, they are invisible lines that people agree upon to define where one area ends and another begins. Unlike physical maps, which focus on natural features, political maps are all about how humans have divided the land for purposes like government and organization. They help us understand how the world is structured by the decisions and agreements of people and governments. This is a key part of understanding geography because it shows how human societies organize themselves spatially. It helps us see the political landscape, which is essential when we think about borders, countries, and how regions are governed. Now, let's take a closer look at the key features of political maps. First, we have borders and boundaries. These are the lines that clearly show where one country, state, or region ends and another begins. They help us understand the political divisions within a larger area. Next, we see how countries and states are distinguished by different colors or shading. This visual distinction makes it easier to identify different nations and their subdivisions at a glance. Moving on, cities and capitals are marked with dots or symbols. Important population centers are often highlighted, and capitals are usually shown with special symbols like stars to stand out. This helps us locate major cities quickly. Then, there are roads and transportation networks. These include major highways, roads, and sometimes railways, which connect different places and are vital for movement and trade. We also find bodies of water, oceans, seas, lakes, and rivers that define boundaries and help us understand the geography of an area. They're essential features for navigation and understanding the landscape. Lastly, labels and names are included to identify countries, states, cities, and other important locations. These textual elements give context and clarity to the map, making it a useful tool for navigation and learning. Together, all these features work to provide a clear, detailed picture of the political landscape, which is fundamental for understanding geography and how different regions are connected. Now, let's talk about how we use political maps in everyday life. First, political maps help us understand governments by showing us where different countries and states are located. They also mark the capital cities, which are important because that's where government leaders work and make decisions that impact our lives. Next, these maps are really useful for finding cities and towns. Whether we're planning a trip or just curious about where people live, political maps give us a clear picture of exactly where these places are. This makes it easier to plan travel and learn about different communities around the world. They also teach us about the countries themselves, their sizes, their locations, and how they relate to one another. We can see which countries are neighbors and get a better sense of how the world is divided into nations. And finally, political maps are essential for planning travel routes. They show roads, highways, and transportation networks, helping us figure out the best way to get from one city to another. Whether you're crossing states or countries, these maps help you understand the route you'll take and the places you'll pass through. Overall, political maps are powerful tools. They help us understand how humans organize the world into countries, states, and cities, giving us a clearer picture of our world and how it all fits together. So, what exactly are historical maps? Well, they are maps that show us what places looked like at a specific time in the past, or what people understood about the world back then. Think of them as windows into history. They reveal how the world, countries, cities, and landscapes appeared many years ago. Some historical maps show us real, accurate information, while others reflect what people believed to be true at the time they were made. This distinction is really important because it helps us understand not just geography, but also how knowledge and perceptions have evolved over time. By studying these maps, we can see how our world has changed, how borders have shifted, how cities have grown or transformed, and even how some places once thought to exist actually didn't. Overall, historical maps give us a fascinating glimpse into the past and help us appreciate how people's understanding of their world has developed through different eras. Now, let's take a closer look at some common features of historical maps. First, you'll notice old boundaries. These maps show the borders of countries and territories as they existed in the past, which can be very different from today's borders. It's fascinating to see how borders have shifted over time. Next, past landforms are often depicted, illustrating what the land and water looked like at a specific point in history. Shorelines, coastlines, and landscapes might have changed significantly since then. You'll also find historical cities marked on these maps. Some cities or settlements may no longer exist, or their locations might have changed, giving us clues about how regions developed over time. Another interesting aspect is old map styles. Many of these maps feature artistic decorations, old-fashioned lettering, and drawing styles that reflect the era they were created in. These stylistic choices add character and context to the maps. Finally, it's important to remember that these maps often have limited knowledge. They might show incomplete or even inaccurate information because they were based on what people knew at the time. Despite these limitations, these maps provide invaluable insights into history and how our understanding of geography has evolved. Now, let's explore why we use historical maps and how they help us understand our world better. First, historical maps are incredibly valuable tools because they give us a window into the past. They allow us to see how places looked before and observe how our environment and cities have changed over time. By comparing old maps with today's maps, we can notice how cities have expanded, coastlines have shifted, and land has been developed by humans. This understanding of change over time is crucial for appreciating how our world has evolved. Next, these maps are also essential for learning about past civilizations. They help us pinpoint where ancient cities once thrived, trace the routes explorers took, and see how large empires grew and transformed through history. It's like piecing together a puzzle of human history based on the geographical footprints left behind. Finally, historical maps reveal the impact humans have had on the environment. They show us where forests were once dense but are now cleared, how rivers have been redirected for agriculture or urban needs, and where land has been created by filling in water. They also show us how transportation networks like roads and railways have developed over time. Overall, historical maps function like windows into the past. They help us understand the history of our landscapes and societies, and this understanding can guide us in making better decisions for the future. Now, let's look at how political and historical maps compare. First, we'll consider their main purpose. Political maps are designed to show us current boundaries, countries, states, and cities as they exist today. They help us understand the modern organization of the world. In contrast, historical maps focus on how places looked or what people knew at a specific time in the past, giving us a window into history. Next, let's talk about the time periods these maps cover. Political maps reflect present-day information, what's happening now. Historical maps, on the other hand, represent past time periods, which could range from decades to centuries ago. They help us see how borders and territories have changed over time. When we examine key features, political maps highlight modern borders, current capitals, existing cities, and today's roads and transportation networks. Historical maps feature old boundaries, past settlements, former territories, and even ancient routes and landmarks, giving us insight into the world as it once was. So, what do we learn from these maps? Political maps show us how the world is organized today by governments and political divisions. They're useful for navigation and understanding current geopolitical relationships. Historical maps teach us how places have changed over time and how people understood their world in different eras. Finally, their common uses. Political maps are great for finding locations, planning travel, and understanding current government boundaries. Historical maps are invaluable for studying history, comparing the past and present, and understanding how civilizations developed and evolved. Both types of maps are essential tools. They connect us to different times. Political maps help us navigate the present, while historical maps tie us to the past, enriching our understanding of how our world has changed over time. Let's take a moment to review and summarize what we've learned about maps. On one side, we have political maps, which are created by humans to show boundaries and divisions. These maps display countries, states, cities, and capitals, and they help us understand how governments are organized around the world. They also show current borders and political features, giving us a snapshot of today's world. On the other side, we have historical maps. These maps show places as they existed in the past, allowing us to see how the world has changed over time. They are invaluable for learning about past civilizations and understanding human impact on the environment throughout history. Both types of maps are essential tools. Political maps help us understand our current world and how it's organized today, while historical maps let us learn from the past. By studying both, we can gain a deeper understanding of our world, where we come from, how we got here, and how we can build a better future.